Maybe that'll help. No? Alright. What is going on here?
Maybe that'll help.
Okay. There we go. Yeah. There's a delay. Alright. Perfect. Now we should be able to hear. So, hello to the 4 people watching now. Please understand between what the messages I get and how I'm speaking, there's a really big delay. I'm not sure how to fix it. I think it's just my internet provider, or I think it's YouTube's encoder. And I'm going to go with YouTube's encoder because my internet provider is actually pretty good. So, hi, welcome to this important stream. I've been talking to myself this entire time, but welcome, one and all, to me explaining everything wrong with the SCP fandom and how everything that's gone wrong in the site is about to affect everything on my channel. And as I said before, you guys didn't hear it, but I mentioned before that I don't want to just say, oh hey Ash, I don't want to just say what's on my mind. Of course I'm going to say that, but I want you guys to understand that my channel is your channel way more than it is just mine. I do whatever you guys want me to do. I make content for you guys. I do it because I have fun and I enjoy it. And ultimately, what happens on this channel is you guys' choice. And I don't want this to stop you guys from enjoying my content, but we do have to address something that is going to end up probably changing this channel, what I would think is for the better. And I want you guys' opinion and I want you guys' weight on it. So we're going to be talking about a fandom that is very near and dear to my heart. The SCP fandom. If you guys haven't heard of it, I don't know whether to be surprised or not, because the fandom when I joined it was really, really small. SCP essentially was a website people made where they would write stories and they'd share these stories and have them proofread, and there was an entire community dedicated to writing all these amazing scientific horror stories, and you just absolutely fell in love with it. And I did. I discovered SCP back in 2011. Okay, I was a lot younger than I am now. That's a whole 7-year difference. Oh yeah, I'd like to think I was really, really, you know, different as a person. And I'll never forget, I saw my first SCP through the official SCP official wiki that was on Tumblr at the time. And it was the Blood Pond one. And automatically I just fell in love with the idea of this community where you wrote stories that were horrifying and scientific, and like the way that it was formatted, I loved everything about it. There was nothing that I didn't fall in love with when I came into this group. And I made my own Tumblr, I made my own characters, and they've evolved over time, and I absolutely still love Candace as much now as I did when I first made her. And I stuck in that fandom for a hell of a long time. I saw a lot of changes. I saw a lot of things happen. Sorry for the audio cutouts, guys. I live with like 2 other people and I don't want to hear you guys like complaining over the background noise, so I mute myself to just avoid it. But I've seen a lot of good, I've seen a lot of bad. Really there was not much bad to really look at. It was more of like you know, you kind of see accounts come and go, roleplay accounts, mostly roleplay accounts, mostly like character ask blogs and stuff. You see them come, you see them go. You see people join the community, and you see them fall in love with it the same way you did. And that's always a great feeling, to just see all these people come to look at something the same way you look at it and admire it as much as you do, and you bond over it. And I made a lot of really good friends through the SCP community. Unfortunately, a lot of them that I knew are no longer with me. I don't want to say like they died or anything, but I just like don't have communication with them anymore, for various reasons. One of my friends is my ex, and we just kind of, it was just a long distance thing where he got a job and I was still in school, and we just kind of, you know, long distance things like that don't really ever last, but we kind of just fell out of contact. I had a lot of friends that I lost contact with purely because I moved on from the websites. There have been a lot of cases of me losing contact with friends that I made, and it's sucky. I'm not gonna lie, it sucks to lose all these friends that you made, and these people that you've come to know, come to share your passion with, come to love, and be so happy about it, and I don't know, I watched some of the Tap's Top videos. I really liked them. I really liked how they covered some of the SCPs, like the top 22 dangerous SCPs. I think the first one was better. Me too, Royal. I still love SCP, but we need to talk about what happened. So this community was really well regulated. A lot of the members were very mature, and they avoided things like trolls. Like there was one instance where a troll was coming onto the forum and harassing people, and I'll never forget, Foggy told the story online where he was like, we ended up tracking the kid's IP address, and rather than dox him, they got in contact with the kid's mother and told him, or told her what he was doing online, and he promptly stopped bothering the forum. A true child. And that's the kind of maturity that you'd expect with a group like this, a group that encourages safe collaboration. And you'd never think a group like this would come down to what happened. But unfortunately, it did. And I will explain what happened. So, about 2 years ago, there was a mass exodus from Tumblr after an incident. One user went on and made a mile-long post. Now, initially, when I first saw the post, I didn't think anything of it. All I saw was, this is a matter that needs to be talked about, it's very personal to me, and at the time I was just like, a matter that's personal, it's none of my business then, it's just somebody venting, right? And I moved on. And then I kept seeing that post reblogged over and over and over and over and over. It was on so many people's accounts, and I was just like, what is this thing? Why is this here? And of course, I continued to ignore it because I came to the SCP fandom to, you know, get away from the shit that was going on in my life at the time and just be happy and talk to my friends. And then somebody made a post that was relatively short, and I noticed it. Yeah, it was the call-out post, Ash. And it was a relatively short post, and it was saying, this user, who I know, I'll just call her A for now, to keep identities safe, called out another user, was called out by another user as being a toxic friend and being abusive and all this stuff. And at that point, I kind of stopped and I was like, okay, now I have to read this post, because I knew A, she was very active in the community, she made a lot of art, she made merchandise for it, she was actually a really nice, positive person, and for the most part, I didn't really see her activity for a while because I guess she went AFK off of Tumblr for a long time. She would come out in like spurts and just talk to people who had been reblog things and make happy comments or jokes on stuff, and it was nothing extreme. She was just a generally nice person. And the person who made the original call-out post was someone else. I'm just gonna say it. Their name was Cyan. Cyan happened to be a moderator on the site, or I think she was pretty high rank in the site, and she was on Tumblr, and she ran another blog, and she also did things like merch, and I admired her because she had a lot of work with Photoshop and stuff, and I liked her skills. And I knew that they were friends. I knew that there was like this, you always have that feeling that there's like a niche group of people on Tumblr that are all friends together and you want to talk to them, but you're not sure you should because you don't want to intrude on their niche when they already have it together and you're just kind of looking for your own niche to squeeze into or forming your own one. And it was that kind of awkward bullshit, but that's still me, to be honest. Despite being the first welcome to the game roleplay account on Tumblr, I'm still petrified to interact with any other welcome to the game account, despite me being the very first one. And it's that kind of feeling. But what Cyan was saying was essentially A was a very toxic and abusive person, and that this and this and that and this and that. And in the long and the short of the story, my first initial reaction to seeing this post was, why the fuck did you put this online? Why would you make this public? This is a personal matter. Why didn't you two sort this out privately? You didn't need to post this online and show everybody your business. But I digressed, and I ended up reading the page anyway. And at the time, I consider myself a very forgiving person, and I was giving both sides the benefit of the doubt. I wasn't going to make any judgments before looking into it wholeheartedly and getting the full picture. And reading that post gave me a lot of red flags, I'm not gonna lie. The post made a lot of claims against A, saying that they were this abusive, toxic person, that they were two-faced, that they were evil, that they weren't talking to people, that they would like never help when they were asked for it, despite being given help all the time. And I remember one specific example. I can't remember the whole damn post from memory, but I remember one specific example was anytime A had gotten really upset or depressed, she went to Cyan for help, and Cyan tried to give her help. And anytime Cyan got upset, she went to A for help, and A was unable to help her by just saying, I'm sorry, which I wanted to give A the benefit of the doubt, because I know people who have depression. Like, that's another issue, just saying you have depression when you actually mean something else, or you don't have depression but you think you do and you just self-diagnosed or something like that. I was willing to give them both the benefit of the doubt, because I have people that, you know, ask me for help with depression, and I am no psychologist, but I will do my best to help. And then I've gone to people for help and they just don't know how to help me, and I'm kind of left there to tough it out. It's frustrating, but it's one of those things that happen. You know, people can know how to take and sometimes not give. They just don't have that outlet. And for me, my personal thing was I was never emotionally connected to as a kid. That was always my issue. I could never like open up to people because I already had so many trust issues. And a lot of red flags also stood out to me in that post, because she was claiming to be a victim of emotional abuse, not physical or anything, just emotional abuse from the friendship. And in my opinion, it sounded more like it was an unhealthy friendship versus a toxic one, mostly because as a 4-way abuse survivor myself, a lot of things stuck out to me that just didn't make any sense. And I've looked very heavily into it, especially as of recently with my psychology courses. I was abused a lot as a child, so I know a lot of the signs and whatnot. And I also know when an abuser is playing the victim card and trying to pin the blame on the actual victim. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and jump to the conclusion that Cyan was an abuser and A was the victim, but a lot of the evidence she claimed to have, and a lot of the witness accounts that she claimed to have, the witnesses never came forward. And I gave her the benefit of the doubt with that too, saying some people just will help you, but they don't want to come forward publicly and help you, and that's completely fine. They listed a bunch of people that said it but never backed up the claim when they were asked. So that was another red flag. And then the biggest red flag to me was their evidence. Looking at that post, every single damn screenshot she'd put in that entire post, always, with maybe one exception, maybe one if I remember, always contradicted her claim. So if she was saying something along the lines of, I'm trying to remember any kind of example I could give. Something along the lines of, she ignored me for something or something like that, it would show a post with the timestamp set as Cyan saying, "Hi, sent 36 minutes ago," and then A sending hi back like 5 minutes later. I can't remember. It's a poor example, but it was always something that was like contradictorial to what claim she was making, and that kind of upset me because she was like sending screenshots privately to people, and then some people would back her up on it. I'm just like, you can't, you gotta post all the evidence. And of course I don't think I got involved in it. I didn't message either of them. I wasn't gonna try and be a fucking peacekeeping white knight that got between them and fixed this. I don't think I even made a post about it. I think maybe all I said was, this shouldn't have become a public issue. This needed to stay private. You guys could have solved this privately. Why did you get the entire community involved? And when I say the entire community got involved, I mean all of the community got involved. Oh God. I can't remember. A wanting to steal Cyan's boyfriend? Wasn't she? I think she was dating Foggy at the time. I remember there being a claim of them making faces to each other in a Skype call, and A saying something along the lines of, guys, can you please not do that, or something like that? I don't remember exactly, but it was something along those lines. And I don't remember hearing anything about A wanting to steal Cyan's boyfriend. But it's been like 2 years since I last saw that post, so I don't know. Oof. Besides all that, I found the evidence really, like, I didn't want to get involved. I knew there was something fishy up with their claims, but, you know, I was like, this isn't my business. I will not comment on it. I don't want to get involved. And then the Anons started. For those of you who don't know, I like to call Anonymous Asks Anons. Oh, God. It was essentially a huge divide between, I never heard about that. I don't remember that. I'm sure if I could find the post, then I would be able to see it all again and like show you guys where all the contradictorials are, but you know, I don't. Oh God. But it was a divide between the community. It ended up dividing between people who sided with A, saying, she did nothing wrong, your evidence is bullshit, which is personally the side that I kind of lean toward, only because I didn't have, like, the compelling evidence that apparently everybody else on Cyan's side had. And the other side was with Cyan. Exactly, Ash. It was SCP Foundation Civil War. And the other side was Cyan's. And if you think I was the only person who wanted to stay neutral, you're wrong, but the neutrality side did not exist. And here is why. It escalated. There was one post that really threw me off that Cyan made. There were two, actually, and the first one was, well, I'm the victim in this, and this is almost verbatim from what I can recall. Well, I'm the victim in this, and usually the victims get the support. And, what throws me off is, if you have to reaffirm that you're the victim in something, like, I get it, it's Tumblr, but if you have to reaffirm you're the victim in an argument, chances are you're not the victim. Just a little abuse psychology 101. If you have to reaffirm you're the victim and people can't obviously see you're the victim, now obviously there's always going to be skeptics, but if you yourself feel the need to reaffirm that you are the victim, there is a good chance you are not actually the victim in this. And the second post was a vague ass post saying, I'm gonna try and kill myself again, and I'm scared for my life. And at that point, I'm starting to think, if she's like all these other states away like you claim. Oh, hi, Andrew Jackson. Good to see you came back from the dead to join our stream. And the other thing I saw was, so if she's a bunch of these states away, why would you ever think that she's going to just come and kill you? Riddle me that, honestly. And so I deduced that those both, now of course I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she did feel like killing herself because she felt so afraid. But after that victim post, I was very skeptical. And at this point, I deduced that she was simply doing guilt mongering, where she's looking for any sort of sympathy that she can get to her cause. And then it escalated. It escalated to, if you're not on my side, you are an abuse apologist. And yes, she would actually go around calling people that were skeptical and sided with A, saying that this didn't need to be public or anything, or defended A as abuse apologists. And unfortunately, Haunted and I got lumped into that category. Haunted and I saw all this happening and were just like, this is none of our business. We're not going to take sides. And I specifically recall Haunted coming to me on the verge of tears because someone he considered a close friend on Tumblr had decided to cut him off because he refused to take a side and stand with science claims. And meanwhile, Haunted and I were just trying to stay neutral and just said, we don't want any part of this. We just want to enjoy the SCP community. And people came after us and told us we were abuse apologists for not wanting to get involved in private business that didn't involve us and didn't need to be posted publicly in the first place. And I got multiple anonymous asks in my inbox telling me, whose side are you on? If you're not siding with Cyan, I can dig up these asks probably, and if you're not siding with Cyan, you are an abuse apologist and you should kill yourself. And every time somebody asked me whose side I was on, I would calmly put a baiting thing like, if you really want to know whose side I'm on, read more. And under the read more, I had copy-pasted the entire script of the goddamn B-movie, because that's how much of a joke this entire conflict felt to me. This honestly felt like I was living in some sort of, like, horrible, like, drama comedy movie, and I really didn't know what else role to play. Oh god. It was horrible. And I remember A finally had to take a stand because all of this was actually hurting her business. And for those of you who don't know, that's when things can actually get into a legal matter. If you openly slander someone and don't provide evidence that they've done anything wrong, and you hurt their business with your slander, or in this case libel because it's written, then that is grounds to have you dragged into a courtroom and sued, because now you are affecting someone else's business with your bullshit. Yeah, I learned that like 2 or 3 years ago, but you know what, it came in handy. No, I actually learned that like 8 years ago. Either way, A ended up getting a lot of shit, and her business ended up being affected, and I don't think she actually pressed charges on anything. I think the two in the end ended up just splitting and blocking each other. I remember specifically Cyan ended up blocking me for saying that, she blocked me after the 5th ask I got. I kept responding with the Dark Knight script and the B-movie script, and she was like, you're not taking me seriously, I guess, so I'll just block you, and I'm like, alright. And I remember one of my other friends on the site, Dr. Bethany Hollins, came to me saying, can you turn off ANIN so we can find out if all of these ANINs are the same, or if they'll come forward without ANIN. And I remember I told her, I doubt they're going to do, I doubt they're going to come back because they don't have the protection of anonymity anymore. Plus, at the time, I was part of a help group online where it was offered through the school I was going to. And we would all go online and we would start blogs that would essentially be safe spaces while expressing our interests. And I told her straight up, I'm with this organization that's offered through my school and whatnot, and I can't turn off ANIN because that would be violating the rule that I signed with them when I turned in like a form. I didn't tell her specifically that I turned in a form, but I just told her I can't do it because I'm part of this group. And she was like, all right, I understand. Didn't talk to me as much after that. I don't remember if she blocked me too. I wouldn't be surprised if she did. The end result was the community ended up being really fractured. A lot of friendships were destroyed. A lot of people stopped talking to each other. Yeah, I would assume so. Once your claim's just like kind of gone down the well, it's just there. But after that happened, I realized the community wasn't going to be the same, and I sensed this change, and I really didn't like it, so I kind of just, that was like a straw for me, where I decided to take a hiatus from the SCP community. And it made me sad, because I wanted to, like, do more things with Candace, but I had to do something and get away from it for a while. And then, in my opinion, I hold Cyan personally responsible, because from what I saw, A really didn't do anything. I'll admit A did say some stuff that really should have been better off just not spoken, but she was really responsible in saying, hey, don't go send her aim and hate, just ignore what she's saying, it's not true, I promise I'm not a toxic or abusive person, whoop-de-doo. Long story short, they ended up just blocking each other, I guess. And their friend group, I guess, kind of fell apart. I mostly blame Cyan for it, because she ended up having more pull, and I think she ended up blocking A's access to the formal site. But past that, I went and, after I heard recently that Haunted decided to stop doing SCP videos, I was curious. I was like, why? And he was like, the community has gotten really, really bad, and they're disrespectful as hell. I'm like, that doesn't sound right at all. The SCP community was really mature and full of really level-headed people. And so I looked into it on my old account, and wouldn't you believe it? I mean, you have a point there, Ash. Neither of them should have made it public. They should have kept it a private matter, and they didn't need to fracture the community like this. But I went back recently and I looked at the Tumblr, and I found out it wasn't a toxic community. Most of the accounts that I had followed had left when I did. They left 2 years ago, and their last post was 2 years ago, and they hadn't visited back since. And I took that as a sign that we just all kind of left after that, because it was ruined for us. I felt really sad. A lot of the blogs that I loved and the people that I loved to follow and listen to and talk to were gone now. And I probably had no way of talking to them again. And so I realized that, and I was like, oh, it doesn't seem like it's toxic, it just seems like the community's dead. And I was telling you this, Ash, I was like, it doesn't seem toxic, it just seems dead. And I brought it up to Gavin, and he was like, yeah, no, they're pretty bad. And I was like, maybe it's something on the main site that I'm missing. And this is where I have the receipts, and y'all need to hear the receipts. I am currently on my new Tumblr called Operational, self-advertising, and I saw someone make a post that said, can we make a new SCP Foundation? Okay, thanks, bye. Following that, they reblogged it with adding someone, or, yeah, they added someone and said, at this person and anyone else who doesn't know, basically the SCP Foundation has been overtaken by SJWs. They changed their icon to the incredibly homophobic version of the pride flag that has a black and brown stripe on it for Pride Month, and are flipping out over criticisms of it. They've locked threads for daring to criticize shitty articles written by trans women. They locked another thread because someone said tranny. They've done their best to get rid of anyone in the community that is vaguely 4chanish, despite that being the birthing grounds of SCP, because they're all racist bigots and the Foundation wants to be inclusive, like it's gone full SJW. Such a shame. I responded by saying essentially I didn't know what was happening, but I was going to ignore Series 4, and they responded with, if it helps, at Operational, some people have made a new site, the RPC Authority. Of course, the SCP Foundation are pissy/salty as hell, and obviously are going to think taking older stuff from before they went to shit is stealing. So I'm not sure if they're going to try anything funny, but at least there's some hope of getting the old SCP Foundation back, just under a different name. Following this, I decided to take a peek at the forums and look into the site. And I'd be more than happy to go through it with you guys. So if you go for RPC Authority, the first thing that will show up is the RPC Authority wiki.dot. Now, over here is the forum that I visited earlier. This is probably what they're talking about. And, you know, originally I was like, well, this is getting weird because, like, they changed it to, I know that there's a lot of conflict in the LGBT community alone between the regular rainbow flag and the black and brown flag, because the black and brown is supposed to signify the inclusion of African Americans or black people in it. And in my honest opinion, as someone who's part of the LGBT community, I don't believe that we should have black and brown on it. Purely because LGBT is not supposed to be a sexuality thing. And while you're including colored people, yeah, that's fine, but yeah, what about the Hispanics and it's just a bunch of unnecessary drama with the flag. I like the original umbrella rainbow flag better, and they really should have just stuck with that instead of the very controversial flag. Like, I personally don't like it, but even outside of my opinion, this flag has a lot of controversy surrounding it, and it was wrong of them to put such a controversial icon. They could have just stuck with the regular that doesn't have that many issues with it. It's this flag that has the issues with it. Not even from, like, my personal, like, opinions. This flag legitimately has a lot of controversy around it. So, I found out that apparently a lot of sites, like the RPC Authority, are popping up. They see what's wrong with it, and they go and make their own site. And so I found this forum talking about it. And what I found spoken in this forum rocked my world. I'll tell you that right now. I understand that the SCP community wanted to be like, hey, let's celebrate Pride Month with everybody. Don't use a controversial symbol to do that, though. Just use the original one. So, I looked at this, and the summary is an alternate site to SCP. Hey, what are the general thoughts on this? Do they have hookers in blackjack? I don't know what that means. I've been out of the loop for so long. As far as I can tell, not yet. I didn't look at this link. Let's go through it together. The main site is for summary judgment of final work, not feedback and critique on unfinished work. It is your responsibility. This is the official site, by the way. It looks very similar to the SCP Foundation. Hell, they literally could have taken the same layout as the original site and just made a new site with it, because it's all under Creative Commons, meaning nothing is copyright protected. And I'll get into that later, but don't bother with the site, don't draw attention to it, never worth it. This is a high-ranking person, you can tell by the little icons next to their logos. Yeah, seems just the thing I'd expect an admin to say, implying that the admins are now all SJWs. The Scooby-Doo mystery was finally solved. Decibel was an admin all along. Isn't the site X made because they don't like the SCP Foundation because they are mad because they are angry? Excellent English. I say let them have it. As an unbiased person, I think it's a little immature. In fact, this real-life Foundation schism is getting too far. I am not one to point a finger at anyone, but if this doesn't get sorted out soon, this might turn out to be a big problem. And I am not talking about any specific group involved. As far as I'm concerned, with every conflict, there are multiple sides to blame. Never just one. How would it become a big problem? I don't see anything that would lead on that direction. It's not like we don't have the President's CI Wiki. Has been existing and active for a while. Nothing happened. We kept ourselves to our own corner unless they blatantly claimed our works as their own, which from current state of matters seems unlikely. We're not in any danger, nor should they. Splitting of communities is never good. As I said, there are multiple sides to blame. Doing nothing will not solve everything, not with today's politics. As much as I hate to say it, the splinters have a point or two. They are wrong in most, but maybe if the admins didn't abuse the power and made sure to keep the contents of the website unbiased, there wouldn't be a split in the first place. Again, there was a lot of, yes, mad because you angered. I know, I can't. I won't comment re-staff abuse of power. I legitimately don't know enough about staff operations to make a fair argument either way. What I will say is staff has two jobs. Quality control, as in deleting low-rated stuff. Policing member behavior, as in removing people who behave like twats. Everything outside of that is peripheral. Staff has an influence on site culture, but the active, prolific authors have a far greater impact, and ultimately the authors collectively decided this was not a place for fuckwits who think LGBT people are subhuman. I don't know where this is coming from. Sorry for the interruption. God, where did I leave off? I didn't know originally where this post came from. Yeah, no, I had to. I mute it whenever my parents come into the room because I don't want you guys like hearing all the drama that they bring. But the new staff have been abusing their power, Andrew Jackson. I could deduce that. What really threw me off was this particular post right here, and I was like, so there's an issue here that involved LGBT. Okay. Let's try to keep the discussion civil and refrain from using unnecessary profanity. I'll touch on that later. I will touch on this later, believe me. Calling people fuckwits will likely not garner the community any sympathy. Additionally, this line of discussion is deviating from the topic, which is the new site. Let's keep the conversation focused. I apologize. The thing is, they're mostly not our community. It might start with such an impression because of their petty undertones, but if they survive long enough, they would have time to rediscover themselves and grow as a community that define themselves independent of ours. They need to, especially if they ever wish to have a user base anywhere close to ours. Or they will fizzle out and die. Either way looks good for me. Talking shit about a community that divided from you for this exact reason. The logo is pretty cool, and I did like the SodaStream one a bit. If they don't mess with us, I guess we'll be fine. Even though I mostly just lurk here, I'm jumping on board simply because it's a small community and it's good to have a foothold in it early if by some miracle it does become big. The way I see it, the worst thing that can happen is that the whole thing implodes, and if that does happen, I can just bring whatever I made back here. It looks like they essentially copied everything from the main site while changing the logo and two words. As it stands, that's not the most promising of starts, but if what's behind it is essentially the Gestalt fad outrage that's been circulating the between nets, they have even more odds stacked against them. Being pissed is tiring. Maybe they'll brave the difficulties and become a competitor with many interests and members spread across the state. Maybe I'll move to Atlantis and become king of the fish people. It's very unlikely, though. Edit. Apparently they've also gone and snatched a couple Series 1s and moved around a little vocabulary. And gone. I don't know why you'd be mad about that. I'll talk about why they can totally go through all of these article files and take every single one, and there wouldn't be a damn thing the original site could do to stop them. And it'll involve Creative Commons licensing. I'll talk about that later, though. Honest to God, this is super embarrassing. And a self-insert SCP isn't? This is where things started to get really bad with the actual site itself. I'm not sure where you're going with this, but I haven't seen any such self-insert SCPs recently. Hint, in this context, self-insert means SCP-2721, which is apparently bad and not like Clef or the dude named after the worst lettuce, which is apparently good. Which is cool, you are entitled to your opinion, to express it even. Just don't be a dick about it. I really don't know where this line of, like, talk even, like, fucking originated from. Firstly, I figured he was referring to Kinch's skip, which is supposedly meant to be somewhat self-inserty for them. Secondly, I meant as of now regarding the current series to my knowledge, but I could be wrong. If 3059 is about a literal self-insert, SCP-3999 has the author killed by their own author avatar. These are probably the most prominent examples. To a lesser degree, 056 Rory Jones is basically my author avatar, which is why I stranded him there, because fuck that guy. I am sure, especially with all the meta, there are others. I have to imagine there's a little bit of the author in Joey Steelwing's fucknuts. Off topic for the thread, but there's a little bit of everyone in JS fucknuts. He's the voice of a generation. Truly an every zombie for the people. Rock on, Mayor fucknuts. Don't know where this came from either. Clef and Bright are also pretty stupid. I've always thought so. I don't know if they're referring to the people that made them or the actual characters. For which case, automatically, we have an issue here because, if you can't, like, it's your opinion to, like, not like the characters, but to just call them stupid and insult them overall just because you don't like them is kind of dumb. Hey, so when are you planning on leaving the site and bringing all your SCPs? Because time is a-wasting, my friend. I already did. I'm just still here to tie up loose ends. I deleted SCP-3009. Make sure to delete your other one. Don't let any doors hit you on the way out, pal. I really don't appreciate the smug, passive-aggressive tone. Good. Keep upping the ante on the animosity. This will definitely resolve any deep-seated issues that caused this in the first place. Why do I have to be fucking nice when the people harassing me and brigading me don't have to follow any code of morals? Why? What code of morals did Deku Link breaking here? This is exactly what I'm trying to point out. The fact that this is essentially a moderator, this is Kinch the Knife Blade, and this is Deku Link, someone who apparently is moving to the other site to avoid problems that are breaking, like the code of morality and the code of respect that the site had built up so long ago. Clearly, he's attacking someone for saying that this person is expressing their opinion, saying, Clef and Bright are also pretty stupid, I've always thought so. That's your opinion, you can say that. It's a bit harsh to say it in that manner, but you're allowed to express that. And this moderator comes and starts saying, basically, if you don't agree with our classic kind of thing, you can leave. That's exactly what I'm trying to prove here. Another mod, Lilyflower, came along and said, look, this is becoming personal and petty, and we really don't need to deal with that right now. This is an official stop to this line of conversation. I'll reply to this post. You did just insult two of the site's most influential and well-respected staff authors. Fair point, but that's, you know, he didn't insult them, he's just expressing that he doesn't like the characters. He didn't, like, specifically attack the authors, though. Oh, hey, John! Nice to see you again after so long. We're just talking about how the SCP community rose and fell in a matter of 2 years. So, despite expressing an opinion, it's considered insulting a staff for not liking the characters. It's not like he said they were shitty authors. He was probably talking about the characters. Most influential and well-respected staff authors. I will talk about Dr. Bright once we're done getting through this clusterfuck of a site now. I think that was a condemnation of the characters, not the authors, considering the context. Honestly, I have no idea why this discussion is being allowed to continue. It's just evolving into bickering and shit-talking. No real valuable discussion is taking place, and honestly, it doesn't need any more attention drawn to it. Whoops. You forgot 2795. Thanks for the other slot, by the way. And despite it, the moderators will continue to harass. Thanks for the other slot, by the way. ETA, you might want to delete your sandboxes too. I'm not sure we should be using space in our boxes to host works for users not intending to place them on the site. Or perhaps staff can weigh on whether they should be outright removed. Kinch, enough. This is crossing the line and you know better. Says Dr. Magnus. At this point, where's the line? What's the line? Look, this is becoming personal and petty and we really don't need to deal with that right now. This is an official stop to this line of conversation and all apply to this post. The line is, stop baiting users and breaking Rule 1. Gladly, another good-minded moderator did step in and just says it right out. That was unnecessary. Cool it. So not all the moderators are bad, but I'm going to hereby assume that most of them are bad. That site was born out of pettiness made out of spite for the staff here. Can you blame them? Did you read the original post? Can you blame them? It's kind of sad to think that just because someone says something you don't like, suddenly you decide that it's inherently terrible, so much so that you start your own place exactly like this, but more Series 1 focused. To be honest, in my opinion, Series 1 was the best series. But, aside from that, it's not so much that they had disagreeing opinions. I'll explain why after all of this, but reminder to the SCP fandom, if you don't support LGBTQIA, you're not an SCP fan. Official SCP Tumblr. Isn't Bright's author in charge of this? Keep that in the back of your heads, people. That's what we're going to talk about after this. Seems like RPC and the many smaller satellite sites were made in response to their users being treated quite spitefully. I, too, leave sites when they tell me not to be homophobic. Another moderator baiting people with this. Them trying to be like, oh, well, it was justified. Bullshit. I will explain why that is bullshit, too. In this essay, I will. Pasta Rasta, you've already been addressed previously for problematic posts with regards to this topic, including backseat modding. The sarcasm and subtle personal dig here do not reflect well on the community. Please be more conscientious with your posts from now on. Oh, you have no idea. Wait till you see the post. I'm not going to read these huge paragraphs of text. Yikes, they're literally counting members. Sounds like they're going to rubber stamp every article that comes their way in order to pump their numbers up and own the skippers. That sounds like a healthy opening gambit for a competitor site that you inexplicably expect to have longevity. Yes, indeed. I think it's, here's my favorite, like, part of the entire argument. I think it's nice that some people saw a problem with the site, so they decided to make a better one. The SCPs, or RPC there, are pretty good, in my honest opinion. A moderator. What? Someone looked at this simple thing that says, I think it's nice that some people saw a problem, so they decided to leave this site and make their own one where they eliminated that problem, and it's pretty good, in my honest opinion. And someone of high rank looked at this and said, what? Someone had to make a more verbose explanation of this. They believe that it's nice to see people who didn't like some things about the site decided to wash their hands of it and create a separate corner of the internet where they could correct these perceived flaws, and that some of the SCPs dubbed RPCs in the parlance of the site in question are of decent quality, at least in their own opinion. I'm crying. I can't believe it's so hard for them to understand that they had to make it more verbose to understand. I don't understand. No, Kathy. No, Ash, they're gonna really poorly understand basic sentences now, too. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I was trying to say that. Sorry if it was messy. Oh, no, it was clear as day. I think the moderators are just, like, suddenly, like, remembering that people can have differing opinions and they don't know how to handle it. I see no need for this thread, but I do find the blackjack and hookers approach to the whole thing hilarious. They're not a big deal. We're not a business, ergo are not competition. We are a juggernaut, and they are a blatant imitation. It could be a complete copycat. If they last long and become as big as us, gears may begin grinding, especially if we become for-profit. If we become for-profit! But for now, they're a bug on the windshield. Pay them no mind. Someone with maximum rank just replies with, another person with maximum rank, replies with, I wish them all the best in their brave endeavor, and also hope that they get the hickers and blackjack before the inevitable demise. May the spirit of Bender B. Rodriguez be with them. Don't know who that is. In the name of the mom, the bot, and the professor, amen. Somebody else of lower rank that joined says, especially if we become for-profit? By the way, my sites achieved orbit when I found out you spoilered the script of the B movie. It wasn't just the B movie. I also took Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight Rises and I put that script in some of them too. Oh, did I? And the person who originally started the drama and who sent those aliens like around to like garner attention actually ended up blocking me after that. I've never seen Futurama, by the way. Excuse me, what? Since when has that ever been on the table? This is a collaborative fiction site, and changing it to a for-profit model would absolutely spit on the original vision for this site, being a haven for cool and independently written surreal horror. If that's the mentality held by the leadership on this site, then it's no wonder imitators with the goal of providing an alternative are popping up. An admin responds with, for-profit may not be the best way to phrase it. My point is, we are not currently a business. If we became such and these RPC folks also became such, there may be more conflict than there should be otherwise. Somebody responds with, just don't do anything stupid. Don't post to it. Don't post on their forums. It just gives them their validation every time we get salty. Whatever. Just mind our own biz and eventually things will fizzle out. That's the kind of moderators that are, these are the same kind of moderators that are just like, you don't need to go anywhere else. You can just stay here and deal with our scummy leadership. I don't know, they're going to charge you to write an article file and determine if you're not good enough. No, of course not. But she couldn't block me because if I go on mobile, I still have access to her account. So it was really for nothing. Deleting my old SCPs and moving them there. Sayonara, Wiki. Show block. Stop. Don't. Come back. See, this is exactly what's wrong with them. They're just like, rather than actually acknowledge that people are upset with the site and try to fix what's wrong with it, they're kind of just giving snarky remarks back. IHP, this isn't helping at all, and frankly, as unnecessary, please don't fan the flames. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And this is someone basically saying, can't we just talk about this? It was never supposed to be political, which I'll explain again later, because yes, what ended up dividing this was a post from the author of Dr. Bright on his Tumblr, and it was essentially saying, this didn't need to be political, Politics never should have gotten involved. The site has its own politics that are all completely fictional, and rarely do real-life politics actually come in. And this is the point I want to make. The SCP Foundation does openly support equality and open-minded thinking, but it also follows a strict don't ask, don't tell policy for what you believe in politically. It's meant to share things cognitively and be creative without being overly and excessively political. And that's another spark that caused all of this. If Cyan laid down the gunpowder, Bright's post is what lit the spark. And that's essentially what they're saying here. This should never have ever gotten political, because that is exactly what allowed these overly political mods to get into power. You know there are already like 10 spin-off wikis, right? I'm not really sure what you think this could do. The only possible outcomes involve either the RPC disappearing into obscurity or a large-scale migration from this wiki onto the other one. As vanishingly as unlikely as that would be, by definition the project would just continue under a different name. If people don't like the way the wiki is run, I see no issues with them starting their own wiki and running it the way they like. I don't mean that in a passive-aggressive way. The underlying principle of the SCP Wiki is that it's Creative Commons. Keep that in the back of your mind too, folks. And there are no grounds or reason to obstruct people from making spin-offs. Here's the issue I have with that statement. If people are telling you something is wrong with the site, if one person is telling you, that's just because they don't like the site. But if multiple people are saying there is something wrong with this site, don't you think that's something worth looking into? Don't you think it should not be necessary for them to have to make their own site? Go through the trouble of making their own site because there are things wrong with the one that they originally fell in love with? Alright, John, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know what Gamergate did to 4chan, but I heard the words Gamergate, and I heard 4chan, and Gamergate did to 4chan, and I already can tell this is going somewhere incredibly fucking dark. I'll explain that later, Royal, because it did get fucking political. And, this is a pretty big factor in that. This is considered political. But back to what we were doing. Something about a civil war not being a stretch of the imagination. They only started, and this is basically saying, the people who went and started saying that this was bad are people who weren't actively involved in the fandom and only started because they saw a YouTube video saying that the fandom had gone down the shithole. And in no way was that YouTube video wrong. Excuse me. In terms of where the blames lies in a lot of responses, I've particularly seen off-site relating to how the Foundation has been ruined are inextricably linked to the vicious hatred for LGBT people. Now keep in mind, this is bullshit right here. It is not because there was a hatred for LGBT people. But it does have something to do with LGBT, and I will cover that momentarily, trying to politely explain my viewpoint and give some context as a site user. Jesus. I've had more PMs telling me to kill myself over the issue in the last day than in my entire life. So yes, I am very comfortable saying that the SCP Wiki is entirely blameless, and this division is largely being driven by an innately hostile bad actors. We will get into why all of this is incorrect momentarily. Alright, back to what I was saying. Keep that in the back of your mind, because this divide, and yes, it is a divide, is not because there was a bunch of homophobic people. Now, I don't doubt that there were anti-LGBT people in the SCP community. The SCP community is larger and more productive than it has ever been. It's nowhere close to failing. People are mad not because the site is failing, but because the site is succeeding in a way that they don't like. This site is not, it's succeeding in a way, And a lot of people don't like it because the staff don't know how to do their fucking job. And it's not all the staff either. It's not as productive. It's not productive to suddenly have someone write an article and then fucking block it because they gave you criticism on it. That's not, I'm sorry to tell you this, but that's not productive. That's just called cherry picking and being a social justice warrior. Oh, God. My throat is parched. I need more strawberry milkshake. Oh, God. 8chan? Part of that website I thought was on the deep web, so that's definitely not good. But, okay, I admit it. I still think 7143J is both unfunny and kind of gross. I'm not embarrassed by this. Also, Katkis's weakest work that I can think of off the top of my head, and generally he is a pretty damn good writer. Also, I'm pretty sure we are still cool, I think. If you have to put that, there's something wrong. There's clearly a divide here that means that you're doubting it. I admit as well that I firmly believe that some people's wits may in fact be fucked, including often my own. Sorry, Zin, but I feel like I have some compelling evidence to back this claim. Not gonna look at it right now, but I am still mostly angry all the time and have at least been since 1986 when I became aware of this problem. I am not specifically angry at you, unless you happen to be a particular you, in which case you know what you did, so fuck you, but not you. Thanks, mods. Blah, 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 blah. I'm guessing I'm really just waiting for Scarlett Johansson to tell me the sun is getting real low, but who isn't? If you like the stuff I write, you just have to accept that it comes from a limitless well of rage. No rage equals I sit on my ass and do fuck all for days and days. Maybe someone reminds me to eat. I don't fucking know. Rage equals I write scary shit and publish it for fucking free for you. That's the equation. It's also totally cool if you don't like that stuff I write. I didn't write it for you. Apologies were due. If I have been a dick, I am deeply and sincerely sorry. Sometimes it's hard to find the line between your honest opinion and your sarcastic remarks. You and me, brother. Personally, I see it more like the splitting of the Catholic Church than a civil war. I personally don't know how to feel about this. At this point, it feels like a civil fucking war. It doesn't feel like a split as much as it feels like as a war. And while there was some that was out of, this person is saying they asked why people left and joined the new sites. There were also personal stories about how they felt mistreated and believed the RPC was a safer place. There was even one person who joined because the thought of joining the SCP was too intimidating. If people are openly telling you that they are being mistreated by staff, or if they feel like they're too intimidated to join the site, that's something you need to start looking into. This is something that you can't ignore this. You can't just say, oh, it's just because they don't agree with our opinions or whatever. If they're openly saying, I've been mistreated, maybe you should look into that and start asking yourself, is there something wrong with how we're running the site? Is there something really wrong that people are leaving and going to other sites because they feel like this place is no longer safe? Yeah, a few of them are probably going to be people that are just like, I just joined it because I'm pissed off at how the moderation is doing. I joined it because I feel like it's better than SCP. I did it because fuck you. But if a bunch of people are telling you that there were a lot of things going wrong with the site, that they were mistreated, that they feel intimidated, that the moderation is not working, that the way that you're editing things isn't the same anymore and they can't deal with it, maybe you need to look at all of those people and say, maybe you need to take what those people are saying and look at your own site and ask yourself, is this the SCP Foundation anymore? It's okay to change one or two things, but if you're changing the formula completely, it's no longer the SCP Foundation. I think the Pride logo is tasteless. It reminds me specifically of pink washing, the practice that companies do where they'll insert LGBT pride stuff into their products to make you convince you to purchase them. Granted, the SCP community is not selling anything, but it reminded me of faceless corporations attempting to convince me they're progressive and therefore do something deserving of my money. I have a distinct feeling that this is the sticking point for many of the dissidents, even if they don't have the words for it. He's saying essentially people left because they don't approve of the SCP wiki using the logo. And I have to say, in my opinion, I agree. Regular pride flag would have been fine because they used to do things all the time where they drew pride flags and they said, love cannot be contained. And that was fine. Exactly, Ash. Everyone has a right to feel safe. It's not right to let people feel unnecessarily afraid. You are a community that's based off of collaboration, working together, taking criticism, and improving ideas. So when they look at this site as a whole and the staff on it and do the same thing, why is it any different? Why does it make it suddenly so much harder to suddenly accept that criticism and change and adapt to it? That makes no sense to me. That is incredibly hypocritical. Anyways. They're basically saying a lot of people left for the flag, and honestly, I don't blame them. You could have used the regular flag, the one that's not controversial. I believe what people are tired of is not politics, but rather preachy, moralizing, ham-fisted bullshit. There's some great stories in here that are political at their core. SCP is about gay conversion camps, the hidden horrors of stagnant small towns, people harvested to power the capitalist machine. People love these. What they don't like is being lectured to. Now, I'm going to admit, this next one is going to really piss me off. The RPC people taking their ball and going home may be petty, but if they want to do their own collaborative horror writing group with a return to the first principles, it's their right. The people I see in this thread snarking at them and waiting or wishing for them to fail is way more petty than any amount of people deciding that they just want to do their own thing now. I liked classic SCP, warts and all. I'd like modern SCP. I can understand and empathize with both sides of the camp. I just wish more people were willing to reach across to the other side. SCP is about open collaboration, not scoring points. Something, 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 blah, 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 blah. And give them a near mainstream appeal in the West is anti-gay. Are you referring to... For the record, I think it's also similarly disingenuous to assert that the website that single-handedly popularized effeminate men and gave them their near mainstream appeal in the West is anti-gay. What are you referring to here, and what bearing does it have on the topic? From the context, I can only assume you're talking about 4chan, and if so, this is the most baffling take I've seen on the internet this week. Yeah, me too. I've personally never been on 4chan. I never want to go on 4chan. I've never been on Reddit. I don't ever want to go on Reddit. Pretty sure 4chan didn't popularize the gay thing, but, you know. Anime. They're talking about Bishonen anime. Traps Oto Kanoko, but close. Can you not? Where's the lie? Please do not the word traps again in this context. It is a slur against transgender women. Hang on, I need to look up the definition of a trap. Because last I checked, a trap and a transgender woman are two completely different things. And this is coming from someone who excelled in fucking biology and psychology. And I'm here to tell you, a trap is a boy that identifies as a boy and is just dressing like a girl. At this rate, a trap is essentially a drag queen. But even there's some differences, and I can't explain to you the drag queen differences. A trap is a boy identifying as a boy that's dressing like a girl just because he can. He's a cross-dresser. That's fine. A transgender woman is someone who was born biologically male, but because they have the psychology of a woman, they experience gender dysphoria, the disconnect between psychology and sex. And because of that, they need to receive hormone replacement therapy and receive surgeries to sort of, transition to the opposite sex to help heavily treat and combat or even cure their dysphoria. Traps is not the same as transgender. And this sort of fucking sensitivity, this SJW misunderstanding and sensitivity is part of what's ruining this site. This person is saying that they really want to support them, even though they've divided from them, and just saying that if they're going to divide, he doesn't wish them bad. He wishes them well, and he hopes they find the audience that they're looking for. Yeah, I don't see it succeeding, but I just like the attitude I see of people actively wanting it to fail. And the final mod post was, okay, I'm locking this thread because it's devolving into messy arguments out with its context. Staff are aware of this whole situation, are aware of stakes we have made, and are currently discussing our next steps. Please bear with us for now. Posted June 19th, 2018. It's good to know one person at least saw all this mess and decided, you know, after hearing all of this, maybe there is something wrong with the site. Maybe there is something here we need to look at. Or maybe there's something here we need to change. Now, I'd like to get into some points that I said before. I'm literally saying this entire site could copy this entire site word for word and all of these article files due to something called the common, God, what's it fucking called now? Creative Commons license. Creative Commons is essentially, it's this. Well, I mean, you didn't want to load before, but when you share, everyone wins. This is a human-readable summary of, and not a substitute for, the license disclaimer. You are free to... God damn it. With Creative Commons, you are free to copy and redistribute the material in any medium or format. Meaning, I could go to Series 1, copy literally every fucking file, and put it on this site. I could take the logo, I could take this and all of this, and put it here. And they can't do shit about it because it's not technically their thing. It's technically, for lack of a better term, in the public domain. They can't make money off of it or anything. Adapt, remix, transform, and build upon the material for any purpose, even commercially. So not only could they take this entire site, they could also commercialize it and, you know, make it their own kind of thing if they just transform it even slightly. Now, of course, because of a moral code, we won't be doing this. As long as you give appropriate credit to the original authors in some cases, if changes were made, then yeah, you're perfectly fine to just take this entire site and just paste it here. There is nothing. Yeah, but here's the issue. A lot of the original writers are the people now controlling the site in an unfair way. Or they just left the site altogether and didn't bother going to a new site. The original writers wouldn't even have to do anything. People can just take their work and repost it and just say they were the ones that wrote it, and that would be enough. That would be enough. I did not take 3 years of a copyright course to just know this. Actually, I did, but I didn't pay attention to any of the copyright stuff besides, you know, anything that would combat YouTube's shitty system. So now we're going to talk about the shit on the Tumblr. For reasons that I want to keep my friend anonymous, I will be reading from my phone. I will be talking to you openly about what it was, the original political thing that caused the divide. Let me just dig it up real quick. So, and I will reiterate, Cyan put the gunpowder down, Bright lit the spark. This came from the author of Dr. Bright's, the author of Dr. Bright, and it's their Tumblr. I am not a damned monkey. Reminder to the SCP fandom. If you don't support the LGBTQIA+, you're not an SCP fan. I mean, I don't make the rules. Oh wait, yes I do. So, if you're homophobic, transphobic, commit bi-erasure, believe that the ace people are not part of the community or any of that bullshit, well, SCP is not for you. Now, it is one thing to tell people that you should try to be inclusionary, and that if you don't support the LGBT community, this probably isn't a fandom for you. It is one thing, it is a completely other thing to tell them to force your own beliefs on this very controversial political stuff that is already within the LGBT community controversial in itself, and then try to force it on other people by saying, I don't make the rules. Oh, wait, yes, I do. Now, I'm going to put my own 2 cents in here. I'm part of the LGBT community. I'm pansexual. I'm dating a transgender person who is also bisexual. I have a transgender female-to-male partner. I have a transgender male-to-female friend. My best friend is a lesbian. My other best friend is asexual. My other best friend, Ash, is bisexual, I think she said. And so, oh yeah, welcome the Phoebe Pete Show. We are spilling the tea today. And I personally don't believe, this is my personal opinion. Yes, transphobic, homophobic, biphobic, and aphobic stuff is not okay, and it shouldn't have a place here. But I'm also the person that believes the acronym is just LGBT, because that's what it originally was, and that's what it needs to stay as. The term asexual was not originally part of it. It popped up in literally 2014, 2015, and it was popping up on the internet as a term that had been created, meaning it was never part of the original LGBT community. Rightfully so, because the LGBT community is a community of individuals that have relationships between 2 consenting adults that is outside the norm of heterosexual relationships, or if you are transgender. I don't believe that not having a sexual attraction at all is part of the LGBT community. The LGBT community is about sexual attraction that is not heterosexual and between 2 consenting adults. It's about attraction that is perfectly natural, because it happens in other species too, but it is frowned upon and needs to be talked about because people are treated differently for having this different attraction. You aren't LGBT, in my opinion, if you don't have a sexual attraction at all. The only way I believe you're asexual and LGBT is if your romantic attraction, if you have one, is not hetero-romantic or aromantic. So if you're an aro-ace, you're not LGBT. If you're hetero, romantic and asexual, you're not LGBT. But if you're biromantic, panromantic, or homoromantic and asexual, then yeah, your relationship counts as LGBT. Because you still have some sort of attraction to someone that qualifies as L, G, and B. Or if you're transgender, or transsexual as the correct medical term is, and asexual, then yes, you're LGBT for being transsexual. So that's my personal opinion on it. And because of that, oh, okay, you're asexual biromantic. So you're still LGBT because you're biromantic. But if you're just pure aro-ace or pure aro-heteroromantic, you're not LGBT then. Because you don't have the L, the B, the G, or the B in your sexuality or your romantic attraction. Or you're not trans. So that was the first post. The second post was Happy Pride Month from the SCP Foundation, and it was a picture of their banner with the new Neo LGBT flag logo. There were a bunch of likes. Nobody really commented or reblogged it. And my friend who looked into LGBT history informed me that the flag is considered homophobic and racist because the black stripe was used during the AIDS crisis and removed once it ended. I don't know how, I'm not going to look into it myself. They looked into it for me and linked me some source that confirmed it. Another post was from the SCP Foundation on Tumblr. Somebody asked, what happened to the Twitter? Our head of staffer has been hard at work trying to combat the homophobia and transphobia that the SCP Twitter account's been receiving ever since the avatar and header were changed to Pride Month themed ones. Sorry, should mention that the Twitter is set to private now, so that may be why it looks like it's empty/gone. Obviously, they received a lot of backlash for using the controversial flag. People commented on my post saying I was about to post a video talking about this. Haunted replied with the initial video I made saying I couldn't agree more. Ash replied with, I haven't been on the site recently, but I've heard some things. Stick to the old stuff and screw the censorship. Somebody named Pootis Spence reblogged probably one of my favorite things I've ever read on Tumblr. I have been looking for justification to why shifting series IV to stories instead of concepts, which I didn't know was happening, rather than placing the stories into tales, has made it unlikable, and finally I find someone with a similar opinion. The SCP Wiki's greatest path to success was also its largest flaw, and as well as its ultimate downfall. It became popular. And in every fandom, there is a limit to how large it can become before toxicity seeps in and takes hold. The site is showing signs of soon crumbling, and one day it will collapse. I have gazed upon that engorged tick, plump with the voices of excited millions, and as it festers with its blood, it too shall become rotten. And in this cap, we too shall see the poisoned life swell into a toxin. Rome shall fall upon itself, and we shall watch, for we knew it was to trip and crumble years ago. Let us gaze upon Alexandria in wicked splendor, as the walls shall crumble in upon themselves, and the people shall clutch their books in fear and horror. There is nothing we can do now, for its libraries have already begun to cave, watching in drunken revelry as the world we once knew crumbles around us, and rejoices for the ruins shall be ours for the taking. Basically, what he's making reference to is the burning of the Library of Alexandria, where, burning knowledge! Yay! And he's saying essentially, once it's all said and done, we'll be able to take it back. But it's probably never going to be the same. As I mentioned earlier, the post saying, let's make a new SCP Foundation. Somebody else, responded, with mild SCP discourse undercut. Back when I was 15, the SCP Foundation was my life. I was in a bad place in my mental health, and I felt like I had little to hang on to. I often felt like the SCP Foundation was a better life than the one I was living. I wasn't happy. I was terribly stressed otherwise, and it was a coping mechanism. It was fine. I also remember my parents and little brother and I were on vacation in a conservative state when the Supreme Court ruled gay marriage legal across USA. I remember that my liberal family had the radio on in our van as we were driving, liberal accepting, and all these super right-wing conservative pastors were on saying about how terrible it was, how bad being gay was, and how the U.S. was a shithole because of this. I remember asking them to turn it off, and I expressed my pride through what mattered to me most, through a place I knew I would be accepted in the universe by pulling out my shitty gaming laptop and making a poster of gay pride in the SCP Foundation. Was it good? Not really. Did it matter to me? Yes. It has 655 notes as of today, which astonished me. At the time, I thought I was bisexual, but was uncomfortable with that identity. I felt like validating that my so many world people agreed with that my favorite thing in the world. The universe I spent most of my time in would be so accepting. Fast forward almost 4 years. I'm in college, 18 years old, a butch lesbian with much more stable in her identity. Being gay is a part of myself, but not all of myself. This is the same with my feelings about the Foundation. My mental health has improved considerably, especially after 2 months earlier in the year where I swore off SCP altogether and decided to prove myself that I could live without my closet and longest-lived coping mechanism. I made new stories that were all of my own. I found new ways to live without it. I learned more than I ever had about myself and why I wrote for the wiki. I learned that I had become too closely bound to it, too sensitive, too attached. I was anxious about writing because I was too afraid of what someone might think and too concerned about the upvotes and downvotes. What people on the wiki thought of me, how popular I was. I learned to care less about the wiki as my mental health allowed. It was incredibly freeing. Pride Month rolls around. I think you all know where I'm going with this. So there have been some pride posters for the SCP Foundation that are way, way better than the ones I made when I was 15. I didn't expect to react the way I did when I saw them, but something about them made me feel strange. I didn't like them. They even made me slightly uncomfortable, which is especially strange because I tend to be a more laid-back person in terms of what really genuinely brushes me the wrong way. I'm not brushed the wrong way enough to send hate messages to this person, and I'm not going to. But I understand where the hate came from with those posters. I understand where they're coming from. The same person who made a post about how the Foundation knows and accepts people who are in the closet, which also brushed some LGBT members the wrong way, as I've been out for a long time, I felt less so. But again, I can see where they're coming from. I have been thinking about this. Why was it that I, a gay person, and other gay and trans people in the fandom I talked to privately about this was made uncomfortable by these posters? Why was I uncomfortable about these posters and not made uncomfortable by my own that I made when I was a depressed high schooler? Why these posters, and why can no one I talk to, including myself, pin down exactly what makes them strange and off-putting? Here's my theory. The process of growth. Right now, the Foundation means a lot to a lot of people, and just like in any fandom, there are users who use the Foundation as a way to vent, breathe, and cope. These are deeply personal works of art, more personal than the normal fan art, because they are OP expressing their identity through both themselves and an extension of themselves. Anyways, I'm not going to keep going. I'll just jump to the conclusion real quick. Why does it come across as strange to some people and not to others? It depends upon where you are in your life, how close you are to the wiki and the universe, how personal the site is to you. For some people, it's comforting to have that clear in-universe connection. To others, it isn't. Does OP have the right to post these posters without getting hate? Well, yes, and because of the plasticity of the canon, why not? This is about interpretations of the Foundation, as well as interpretations about what it means to be LGBT. When I was 15, these posters would have been incredibly comforting to me. Now they are less so. Different art strikes different people in different times of their life. When it comes down to it, it's art, which is personal and controversial at its core. So it makes me uncomfortable because to me, it feels like it's portraying the Foundation as seeing my LGBT as something special that should be pointed out to others, when at my current point in life, I feel no different than any other person because I've gotten comfortable with my identity. This brings up a whole other thing where your identity in the LGBT community should not be a definition of you. It should be part of you, but it should not define you. Well, John, from what I've heard, yes, they are at a higher risk. Shadowrun. I tried playing Shadowrun. I'm not going to play it. I tried it, and it was bad. But it was bad for me, at least. It was, wow, we tried it with my D&D group, and we just had hell. Night, Ash. Have a good night. But this is another important thing to bring up. Your LGBT identity should not define you. It should be a part of you. The next piece is the same person responded with, "It's my personal opinion, and this is coming from a liberal lesbian, that changing the wiki's banner for Pride honestly wasn't appropriate. In my opinion, the conservators that have been attacking the site for this month are kind of right. That is shoving it in people's faces. I get it that a lot of staff and writers are LGBT, so am I. I get it that it's a liberal-leaning site. Again, same. I get it. That it's a widely accepted that the Foundation is very tolerant in universe. But holy shit, it's no wonder it's driving people away. Most of the site's visitor demographic is straight men. Like, non-LGBT people probably feel alienated and uncomfortable into that. You know? I'm all for social justice and whatever, but yikes, lads, let's roll back a little." Clef from the community responded with, "I say this as a straight man that I really don't feel all that alienated and uncomfortable seeing a rainbow icon on the wiki. The fact that some people do might be more their problem than the wiki's." Okay, this is tricky because yes, how people feel about that controversial flag that the wiki used is entirely varying from person to person. But the wiki should have known better than to use the controversial version of the flag. That was not necessary. No. Clef also made his own post saying, "Apparently there's things going around where people are claiming that the direction of the SCP Foundation wiki is at odds with what the founding membership had in mind for the site, as in that the membership that came over from X wouldn't like the more inclusive attitude of the site. This is laughable for two reasons. With the possible exceptions of me and I am not a damned monkey, the founding members of the SCP Foundation got bored and left years ago, and even Duckman and I have largely fallen off of actually being involved with the wiki's day-to-day operations. 2. It assumes that the founding members of the SCP Wiki site had a plan for the site instead of, being a bunch of stupid kids sitting around making edgy jokes and writing bad horror fiction. I'd point to 2 incidents where we had our wake-up calls. The first was when Kandraki doxed some applicant to the site for being a furry. I did not know that happened. That made us realize that if we didn't put some standards on behavior, someone could do something that would get the site in serious trouble. The second was the fishmonger accident. That taught us that there is no amount of writing talent is worth putting up with toxic behavior. As evidence, 10 years ago, Fishmonger's content was the cornerstone of the wiki, and his reach spread to every story written on the site. These days, he's a minor footnote, and his articles and stories are largely forgotten, and there are a plethora of writers putting out content that puts his to shame. My belief is that we hadn't started to change the standard of behavior on the wiki. The entire thing, if we hadn't started to change the standard of behavior on the wiki, the entire thing would have torn itself to shreds within a year or two. As it is, we had some serious rough spots, mostly due to creators getting sick of the lingering toxicity and leaving. The ones that toughed it out were the ones who thought that the wiki was meant to them, who thought that the wiki meant to them was worth saving, and so they put in the work to keep it afloat. So yeah, if you're wondering what the original membership of the SCP Foundation Wiki thinks about the current direction of the wiki, my answer as a member of the original membership is my opinion means jack shit. I haven't put in the words for years now, so I don't get to have a say. For the record, I think they're doing okay. Bright also responded with, and my opinion is that we're doing awesome. In my opinion, as someone who looked at the site and is hearing all of this, you guys are not doing awesome. You guys are openly ignoring the criticisms that people are putting on your site, and that's not okay. Another issue is Bright using the word queer to describe the LGBT community. This is another big one that varies based on opinion, but overall is generally considered unacceptable. The word queer means strange, odd, or out of place, and there's a reason why we call ourselves more the LGBT community rather than the queer community. And oh Lord. No one really commented on this, but I'm just going to say it. There are a majority of people who don't like being called the queer community. This varies on a person-to-person basis, but overall, you should try to avoid using the word queer because it was never officially reclaimed as a term to describe the community, so you should not be using it. And Bright kind of takes pride in using it. Again, yeah, it's a personal preference, but if you're running a public kind of thing where a lot of the bases, like fan bases, LGBT, there's going to be a lot of people probably that aren't cool with being called queer. Somebody asked Cyan, do you think that with the recent mod drama and mistrust with mods on the site that there will be a slowing down of the steam of the Foundation Wiki has been picking up the last few years? Like people leaving the site or people outside the community becoming less interested in SCP due to hearing about the drama, do you think this is going to hurt the popularity the Foundation has currently, or will this too pass? I think staff have made it pretty clear that it was only a select few staff members behaving that way. The people coming after the site from the 4chan side of things will always ignore the facts, like that if it doesn't benefit their narrative, but I'd say things will still be almost completely blown over by July. Ugh. It's SCP-173 wearing a transgender shirt and transgender pride flag and saying gay rights. Again, this is another issue. Within the LGBT community, a lot of these issues start, and the Foundation really should have known, for publicity's sake, not to use a lot of these terms. Like, for example, here's another one. People don't like using gay as an umbrella term for the LGBT community. We like using LGBT. I know. I'm sorry, guys. But, like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. They have to... What's happening is the mods are both being overly sensitive and critically insensitive. They're no longer, like, listening to the community. I'll clarify this in my conclusion later, but... Let's keep going. Somebody else reblogged that post from earlier talking about how they think the LGBT flag is alienating straight people that are on the site. And somebody responded with the 3 main issues: the logo, the staff, and the homophobes. The logo. Basically, the SCP Wiki changed its logo to the rainbow flag for Pride Month. This person is basically saying they didn't really like it, but they didn't really care. At the end of the day, it's going to be gone at the end of the month. Other people seem to think that this was the bare minimum. A majority of people who were protesting were not homophobes and in fact seemed to be regular wiki users, many of whom are LGBT themselves. Who think that? There are better things the wiki could have done to shown support. An LGBT-themed contest subject to all the usual voting deletion processes linked to LGBT-themed charities or support. Many other LGBT fans have also said it seems like pandering, and that it's kind of embarrassing to be singled out for something that's just part of them, as one person put it. It's like being fawned over simply because you want something different from your one-night stands. Second issue, the staff. This is coming before homophobes because, well, there's no easy way to say this. The reaction of staff, one staff member in particular, directly caused this garbage fire to blaze wildly out of control. It seems that Reddit was where this all got really heated. The SCP subreddit had a bit of drama, which was mostly fine. People mostly arguing about the bullet points. As things always do online, it escalated. Some people showed up who were posting genuinely hateful, homophobic things. Everyone was banned, but people expressing the points made in the logo were banned. People complaining that the person who had been banned didn't deserve to be banned were banned. The mod behind this, Cactus, has been said by multiple people to have gone overboard with the banning, and has been acknowledged by another mod, Jorith, to have been out of line. Cactus has stepped down from mod because of this. It's confirmed this behavior was out of line. Once again, everyone was banned for even stepping a toe out of line. The same happened on the Twitter account. Even LGBT folk expressing opinions like the above under the logo were banned. Accusations of homophobia flew. It was a purge of anyone who even farted out of line. On Tumblr, similar things. Not so much banning, though I have no data for blocks, but very, very vitriolic replies. Black and white thinking. If you do not agree with the logo change, you are an hominphobe. No in-betweens. Actual LGBT people being talked over. So, staff went overboard and started dictating who's a homophobe and who's not. Typical SJW behavior. If you don't agree with me, you're wrong. Blocked. Homophobes. When drama whips up enough, the trolls come a-knockin'. All of this whipped up enough drama that it spread around the internet, and people in other parts started showing up to pitch in, including 4chan, alt-right sectors of YouTube, etc. I don't need to go into this because it's exactly what you expect. Horrible language, homophobia, the gays are stealing me SCPs. This happened because the drama was blown up and dealt with poorly by staff. Reiterated. Had this not been entertained for so long, this wouldn't have happened. Case in point, staff responded to them. Staff interacted, gave them a platform, and encouraged them. For God's sake, you should know it doesn't work like this. Once something like this happened, you can ban 24/7 at the speed of light, and there will still be more. The only way to stop this is to avoid it. Or even better, don't let them get a whiff of the drama in the first place. In conclusion, am I blaming staff entirely? No, not entirely. At the end of the day, the homophobes are in charge of their own actions. However, I am blaming them for letting this get this far. Careful moderation, self-restraint, and a blinding desire to be seen as supportive caused this. If you just blocked the initial homophobes, that would have been fine. Instead, it was whipped up into a frenzy. People are widely complaining they have lost faith in the staff. People are widely criticizing the wiki. I've seen entire threads of thousands of words of discussion not even mentioning the logo. It's not about the logo, it's about the staff's attitude. SCP Wiki official, please, please, please take this under consideration in regard to the suggestion of doing this annually. It was seeing it being the subject of an alt-right live stream that freaked me the fuck out enough to make this post, because the next step here is for real LGBT content on the wiki to become a target for that kind of shit. If the content I had written became a target for an alt-right live stream, I would consider leaving because that shit is fucking terrifying. But then the bigots just get what they want. Well, they sure fucking would, lads, but being singled out by Nazis for my writing is not something I would be down for. Cyan replied with, I'm the LGBT cosplayer they started with, and it was my posters they were using. I've gone into why I'm not torn up about it, and I've had worse, so don't worry about me. That's not the point of the reblog. I agree with the gist of Vile's comments, which is the original poster. I disagree on a few minor details, but that doesn't matter. A lot of what happened here was people not being able to draw the line between speaking as staff and speaking as humans. I wrote a translation of Bright's Get Out of SCP. If you needed a translation, something was wrong. That's inexcusable. I was speaking as a writer on the site who is no longer staff, but then SCP Wiki official reblogged it. My words became the official stance of the SCP Wiki. I am partially responsible for creating information that contributed to this drama. I'm not saying I don't have a right to post that sort of thing, but I am aware of how much influence I have. Negative. And I am aware that the satellite fandom, often unintentionally conflates, has a lot of posted articles and influence with has power on the main site and can speak for the wiki in an official context. Next piece. Is it irrational for me to be scared of the future of the Foundation? I mean, we were starting to get really popular, and I'm worried that the people are going to be scared away from the site because of all this bullshit. And I mean the right-wingers and getting all offended by the rainbow logo. Some anti-SJW, I still can't believe they call themselves that without a hint of irony, is going to make a spin-off wiki that fails in under 2 weeks because no one on it can spell. There will be a few more trolls. Someone's going to make a bunch of sock puppet accounts and go on downvotes of LGBT author stuff. Staff will reverse it. Then they'll get bored and leave. We have a following because we produce content people like. Right-wing piss babies make a scene and don't mean shit in the long run. The Foundation isn't going anywhere. Mark my words. Sorry, Cyan, but the Foundation is going straight down the drain at this rate. Let's see. Now Cyan goes on and denounces the right-wing cuck on YouTube. I haven't seen the video myself, but people are basically... Oh, hang on. She basically said that if people that are not on the site don't... if people on the site want to control the canon, they can try and write something. And this line also pisses me off. Trigger warning just in case. Until then, the canon will be queer inclusive because that's the way the actual authors are writing it. I'm sick and tired of these armchair warrior satellite fandom conservatives who don't even have the balls to pick up a pen and start running around trying to police site content. That's about the end of this thing. So, what is my final thoughts on all of this, and what are you guys' final thoughts on it? In my conclusion, the site is going to shit, and they're not doing anything to stop it. From what we've reviewed today, staff is receiving complaints from people that are leaving, and it's ironic because the site is about dedicating things, collaborating, editing, and fixing up things. And staff has apparently forgotten that. And rather than do the same thing that they're so good at, moderating the articles and making sure they're good and editing and helping improve the site based on the feedback they get, they are completely ignoring it and just choosing to, they're not doing their job, essentially. And they're letting this site fall into disrepair, and they're letting the traditional things that made the site so great fall apart, and then complaining about how people are leaving and encouraging them to fail because they know something's wrong with the site. This is not the SCP site they fell in love with, and when staff isn't going to do anything and they're forced to leave, staff is mocking them for it. They are essentially creating thieves on the streets of Paris and then locking them up for when they commit crimes after creating those thieves because they failed to give them an education or anything. Shitty analogy, I know, but that is essentially what's happening. It is saddening that they can't see what's going on because they're not listening to these people, and when they leave is when some people choose to listen, and others are just like, let them leave, we're not going to fail. And inevitably they are failing. They're failing to manage their site. They are failing to manage everything, and it's all falling apart. And people like me who love it are now like incredibly distraught because they're trying to include politics in something there's just so many issues. They're including politics where politics never was before, and they're being overly sensitive and also insensitive at the same time. And all of these issues, I'm choosing to disregard them, and as far as I'm concerned, Series 4 doesn't exist. I am going to continue using the characters that I've created, that I've put love and time into, and I'll be reviewing series 1 through 3, and I refuse to acknowledge series 4 at all. And I refuse to acknowledge a lot of the people on the site now for what they've done. I will continue to be a dedicated classic SCP lover, because what is happening right now, this is not SCP. This is not the SCP Foundation anymore. This is an abomination that is poorly managed and absolutely atrocious. Oh, thank you, John. So what do you guys have to say about all of the evidence that we basically just reviewed? Just giving you guys some time to write it out. Thank you guys. I appreciate the comments. I honestly think that staff needs to fix the site. They have a lot of things that they need to do, and they're not doing it. And because of that, things are going downhill, and they're going downhill really fast. And if they don't do something soon, it might be too late to fix it. But that's not going to influence the SCP Foundation that I fell in love with. It's only encouraged me to revamp my characters. Sad and slightly maddening. Like, it makes me sad, but at the same breath, it makes me so mad. Exactly. That's, to put it into perspective, I guess the moral of this story is don't drink the Kool-Aid. It's so very toxic. Another good thing. It's, for example, it's like if suddenly, it's exactly like what happened with Adam during the Reflect Studios incident, where, you know, we're a small community, and something happened with Markiplier, and immediately everything happened. Now imagine if Adam hadn't controlled that situation. Can you just imagine what would have happened if Adam had not intervened and just been like, listen, he made an apology. It wasn't sincere, but I'll take it over nothing because I don't want to start drama and ruin the game for everybody. Can you imagine if he had not done that? Welcome to the Game might have turned out exactly like this. And that's kind of upsetting to think about. Yeah. But me being me, I fell in love with this community, and the people in it, and I fell in love with the stories, and I'm going to stick to the classic SCP and disregard anything regarding the Neo Foundation, as I'll call it. I'll be continuing regular SCP readings when I get the motivation to do so, and read a few more. And it's not going to affect how I feel about this. I love these games. I love the Foundation idea, the lore. Overall, I'm going to continue to address the Foundation as it used to be, from its glory days. I really think that the Foundation needs to get their things together, and they need to start listening and fix the things that people are complaining about, or they're not going to survive. That's my final thought on the topic. Yeah, I'm really glad. Welcome to the Game didn't turn out like this too. But those are just my final thoughts on it. Feel free to follow me at my Tumblr account, operational, and talk to me about it. And hey, you never know. Maybe it'll actually get somewhere, but if not, know that this channel supports not only the LGBT community and people in general, and is here for you and here to talk to you, but also understand that I love the community still, and I love the idea of the SCP Foundation because the community's gone to shit at this point, and I will continue to love it, and I'll be a safe haven for conversation that's actually, you know, kind and legit and stuff. But I think that's the end of this live stream, you guys. I really appreciate all of you tuning in and listening. I'm glad I could actually talk about this. This is not going to affect the way that SCP is run on my channel. I'm going to continue to make these videos and continue to absolutely adore them, them being the SCPs and stuff. I have to get into the Elder Scrolls and start playing it live so y'all can actually help me, because I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time. Message me on Tumblr about it. But for now, I think that's going to be the end of this live stream, you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said, this isn't going to affect the standing of my channel or SCP content on my channel. And I appreciate you guys coming in and discussing it with me, because this is something that really needs to be talked about. This can't, like, keep being swept under the rug. Like, they're doing something wrong, they're ignoring it, and somebody's got to tell them that they're doing something wrong and that they're ignoring it, and make them do something. Otherwise, they have to see the ramifications of their lack of action. So, thank you guys so much for watching. It's getting late. I've been on a stream for like 2 hours now, going on 2 hours, I think. And yeah, maybe 3. But I appreciate all of you guys being here, and I will catch you guys in the next live streamer video. Peace out.